When looking at entertainment of any medium, controversy is natural. It can have many names: scandals, fraud, cancellation, indictment, discourse. Really, the more fans a piece of entertainment has, the more likely controversy is to spawn. Battle for Dream Island has had a few run-ins with controversy, but the kind I'm interested in today has to do with the voting system. There have been many close or far votes that have been met with expected sorrow from fans losing their favorite characters. The sadness or madness is inevitable, but there are two times where it's been extreme enough to directly impact the voting format, both being modern examples. I'll be taking a look at the lead-ups to each vote, the vote itself, how the voting system changed, the way those changes have impacted the show, and what we can discover from all the mess. These are the two BFDI votes that changed everything. I should preface before we talk about our first vote that while I will be discussing some drama with these eliminations, I'm not here to refuel any fires. My main concern is looking at the changes themselves, and while knowing what led to them being implemented is important, I'm not here to argue or pick a side in any of these Steve Harvey-less feuds. With that out of the way, let's talk about Nickel. Despite being the victim of our heated elimination, he himself isn't super significant to the controversy. He's a goofy guy who later had his time to shine in BFDIA, but while he was still good in Teapot, he was never really the focus of his team. His energy matched the scrappy underdog vibes of Just Not, and his survival in their first two eliminations is proof he had support, but fans simply being sad that he got eliminated was in no way what caused the voting system to change. No, the change was really caused by a building pressure that finally blew its top off when the heat was cranked up. No point in stalling any longer, so let's get into what Nickel, but mainly his team, does in Teapot 9. The challenge of surviving the zombie apocalypse is a hectic one, as each team is spread out in different locations. Some are at the hotel, some are outside, and Just Not is hunkered down in Gelatin's abandoned steakhouse. They're safe from the zombies, but not safe from the horror of bad reception. When 2 informs each team of the challenge, they can't exactly hear what 2 is saying, and it kinda sounds like the challenge is to wipe out your own team. This normally wouldn't be an issue, but since the team has a known cold-blooded killer named Pillow, the situation starts to get tense. Nickel gets bashed, book gets worn, price tag gets torn, but before Pillow can take out Bommy, he lights his own fuse and goes out on his own terms. This obviously kills them both, and since the challenge was to survive, Just Not is up for elimination. But unlike the other vote outs since episode 3, they are the only team up for elimination due to Teardrop dying and being auto-eliminated as the only member of Team Teardrop. This would make things more tense, no matter which team lost, but the presence of Pillow only made things worse. She honestly matters more to this vote than Nickel does, because a lot of people were pissed that she turned on her team and practically caused them to lose. She'd be cooked in Vote to Eliminate, but having haters doesn't mean you're headed out the door in Vote to Save. You see, Pillow also had many supporters who loved the spice she brought to her team, and they came through when it came to the vote. Because voting had always been done through the comments in almost every season till now, it meant that votes were trackable, and that if you really wanted to know who was in danger during the voting period, or even what the results could be, you could just find out. Because people could easily know if their favorite was in trouble, fans could rally and try to save their favorite character during said voting period. This already made many BFB post-split and early Teapot votes crazy close, but now things were really stressful with only 5 characters being up for voting. Pillow was projected to survive, even with close votes between most of the team, meaning that people who wanted her gone had to deal with the knowledge that the character they wanted out would likely survive. To reiterate, I don't care about drama between fans, but what matters is that things were getting toasty between the supporters and haters of Pillow. That wasn't even the end of it though, as there's one last ingredient in this shit salad for us to discuss, being a potential giveaway. Enter Adam Katz, creator of Inanimate Insanity and voice of Nickel. In lieu of him being in danger, he announced on an Instagram story that if Nickel survived, he'd give away 5 Nickel plushies. He clarifies that you don't have to vote for him, but being a creator with a lot of influence, there's a subtle implication that he wants fans to push harder for Nickel's survival in the voting war. Now, I wouldn't call this the tipping point or rigging the votes, as Nickel obviously still got eliminated, but it only added to the discourse and was definitely a notable part of the vote. The reaction to this announcement was a mix of backlash and mockery, which Adam later eased by apologizing and still doing the giveaway despite Nickel not being able to pull through. Speaking of which, there's no point in stalling the full breakdown anymore, so let's go to the results. Balmy was first safe by a wide margin, escaping the war zone between his teammates. Price Tag was second safe, Pillow was third, Book was fourth, and with a 54 vote difference, Nickel was eliminated. As I said earlier, the controversy of this vote was caused by the natural threat of elimination, expedited by one team being up for voting, Pillow being a polarizing character that many people wanted out, the knowledge that she'd likely survive leading to further conflict, and the giveaway which only added to the heat. Something clearly had to be done to stomp out the flames of disarray, so a change to the voting system was made. Starting from Teapot 10 onward, voting would now be done using a Google form rather than the comment section. This made votes under lock and key, unknown to fans who could now only speculate through the episode itself or how much support a character had in the comments. Voting in Teapot has stayed this way ever since, with the only natural change being that instead of just having one vote, you can now vote for one character per team after the team swap in Teapot 12. I'd say this change was a good one, as keeping the results a mystery to everyone both increases excitement for new episodes and helps keep people's expectations relatively in check. Without having semi-reliable numbers, people can really only make assumptions about what'll happen. That leads to discussion, prediction, and way less stewing for months in the wake of a character's inevitable elimination, since unless they have a Balmy or basketball level bad edit, anything can happen. It's not a perfect system, as big upsets can still happen, but that's inevitable with all competition shows. For a change meant to combat sadness brewing for a long period of time, I'd say this change was a success. On to our second vote, which comes from BFDIA and spawned from a similar mix of factors like in Teapot. The difference between them is that the trigger of those factors were almost the opposite. Rather than fumigating in a toxic truth, the liking and disliking voting system of BFDIA led to believing in a false one. With that out of the way, it's time to take a detour. To fully understand what created the controversy of the vote at hand, we have a prologue to get through with Spongy in BFDIA. Spongy's a character who's been through the ringer, being eliminated the most times, and while he isn't as disliked today compared to mid-BFB, he still isn't very popular. I personally really like Spongy, legit one of my faves, but that's not why I brought him up. After BFDIA came back, Spongy was in a rough spot, being bottom 2 twice in a row against Rocky and Yellowface, but surviving thanks to their own unpopularity. Going into BFDIA 10, some people were already surprised that he'd made it this far, but things weren't looking good by the end of the episode. Basically, Ice Cube causes everyone except Fries to form a mega team during the ice cream making challenge, in which Spongy builds a stand and tries to help serve it, but the team loses, making everyone, aside from Fries, up for elimination. Seems pretty open and shut, right? He wasn't as popular as everyone else, so of course he'd be eliminated yet again. Well, a dislike for Ice Cube was actually starting to gain some traction after this episode for causing the Mega Team to form and dying almost immediately after. This actually gave Spongy some hope, and using the dislike extension to see who was eliminated showed Ice Cube having more dislikes than him. It was hard to believe Spongy would survive yet again, and sure enough,
yay! Spongy, you have been eliminated!
He was out. But what happened? Was he rigged out of the game? Was there a vendetta against him? The answer is no. He was eliminated fairly, as proven by Carrie, one of the creators of BFDI. What happened is that the dislike extension has a really big margin of error through how it calculates dislikes, and this was the first time it had been wrong. That didn't stop this elimination from being controversial, but after foul play was ruled out, things started settling down. Spongy fans got their revenge next episode, and the voting system remained the same. After this vote, there were a couple other times the extension was wrong. The first being Golf Ball leaving over Bommy, and the second was Pencil leaving over Needle. These eliminations weren't met with nearly as much controversy due to the numbers being close and people understanding the margin of error with the extension. It seemed like the system was fine as is until BFDIA 18 came along. Now let's talk about Fries. Like Spongy, Fries is a character who's had a fair share of bottom twos, but unlike Spongy, Fries has had a big rise in popularity throughout the season. Even being a mean character, he held his ground in some tricky votes and even got the most likes in BFDIA 17. This made him immune that episode and allowed him into the final 6. This is endgame territory, and lots of people were wanting him to go all the way. BFDIA 18 exemplifies this, with everyone gunning for the gold and lighting all their beacons. Fries specifically is a bit meaner this episode compared to some of his previous ones, but he's still very enjoyable in not caring, yet still trying hard to win. He loses though, being cooked to a crisp by Pin, and is up for elimination in a seemingly bad spot, like Spongy was. Coiny was cast aside by his main ally, Needle had good character growth, and Book got demolished, which gave her lots of sympathy. That only leaves Tennis Ball, who despite getting the most likes in episodes 10, 16, and 18, was starting to receive some flack. Being Mr. Popular, and also having a meaner episode through splitting up Pin and Coiny, caused his dislikes to rise, and by the end of the voting period, it was looking like he'd get the most likes and be eliminated by a good margin. It was hard to believe. Fries would survive yet again, and sure enough,
And the person eliminated is... Fries!
Whatever.
it wasn't even close, with Coiny, Book, Needle, and even Tennis Ball having way less dislikes than him. What happened then? Was he rigged out of the game? Is it all a ruse, a conspiracy? Or did the exact same thing that originally happened to Spongy happen to Fries? The answer is yes, as Carrie once again proved that Fries was legitimately out, which made all the crackpot theories that he was safe vanish like smoke in the wind. If you haven't realized by my repetition, this situation is almost the exact same as when Spongy got out, with two main differences. The first is that BFDIA had just entered the final 6, and everyone had a lot of vocal fans wanting their favorites to win. The second, and admittedly funnier reason, is that the episode itself had just enough coincidences to form a crazy theory that Gelatin and Fiery rigged Fries out of the game, and that he'd rejoin next episode with Tennis Ball being rightfully eliminated. Through being given false expectations by the dislike extension, controversy and copium were born when a sword of truth slashed through the untrustworthy numbers. That's really all there is to it, because from a casual perspective, both Spongy and Fries being eliminated makes total sense considering their track record. This marked the second voting controversy in BFDIA caused by the results being against what keyboard warriors had expected, so clearly something had to be done. The change was simple. Starting with BFDIA 20, the likes would be privated for the voting videos, meaning the dislike extension would no longer work. Because the change is only applied for this one vote that we don't even officially know the results of, it's hard to say how much of a positive change it will be on the voting system, but I definitely think it's a plus. Like with the Teapot voting change, it removes the problem of giving people early expectations and only allows for guesses as to what will happen. What really stands out to me about the change, though, has to be how odd the situation that led up to it was, especially considering when Teapot changed its voting system. Teapot 10, the episode with the change, was released in March 13th of 2024, and the Spongy elimination controversy happened only a few weeks later, on April 1st. Hiding the likes doesn't change the way you vote at all, and it definitely wouldn't have created confusion if it was implemented a month and a half later in BFDIA 12. Maybe it was a if it happens again, we'll do something about it situation, and once the Fries elimination came along, it was swiftly implemented. No matter the reasoning behind the strange delay though, I think this voting change will prove to be a success despite how brief it will be around for. So what can we learn from both, or all, of these votes? Well, it really comes down to one core idea, that being expectations, or rather, the anguish that can come from them. Whether it's knowing what to expect or being blindsided, both Teapot and BFDIA's voting systems had cracks that allowed for early expectations to be made, which led to brooding or anger in the wake of a character being eliminated. While the drama may be a testament to how well realized the cast of this show is, as people were invested in who would be eliminated, that passion became twisted and spiraled into a frenzy without proper management of expectations. Since the voting changes provide a sort of management, they definitely serve as a positive contribution to everyone watching. Regardless of how often you see the opinions of others on social media, having a general positivity exist is way better than a divided sulking. There are sure to be more contentious votes in the future, but at least proper measures have been taken to weaken future controversy and keep things moderately calm as both ongoing seasons continue. That's all I gotta say. If you haven't, please subscribe, like, share, hit that bell, comment if you have any thoughts, and thank you for watching.